map includes nearly all of Crebilly Farm, only chopping out essentially the Westminster Presbyterian Church and the immediately adjacent lands to the church. So that's obviously a very big impact. The base planning areas are another story. In their letter, Chester County Planning Commission recommended that the proposed residential development on the western side of the tract is not consistent with the goals and objectives of the rural landscape designation, nor is it consistent with historic resource and context preservation policies of Landscapes 3, which include the Brandywine Battlefield overlay. Chester County Planning stated that in order for the proposed development of the Robinson Tract or Crebilly Farm to be generally consistent with Landscapes 3, the applicant and the township should consider the development of a revised site plan in which the proposed development activity is now located, to the greatest extent possible, moving it to the eastern portion of the site.
Mr. Snook, do you agree with that recommendation?
Yes.
And why?
The greatest value of land such as this, notably at Crebilly Farm, which is still an incredible, intact, very visible landscape, ripe for interpretation of historical events, is frankly that historical interpretation value. And as the county suggests, keeping as much as the significant portions of the battlefield intact as possible is highly desirable. They, in fact, in their letter, suggested an alternative plan, which would do that.
And do you support that alternative plan?
In general, I do. I realize it's a quick sketch, and I realize that for the developer to make it work, they would probably, even if they embraced it, they would undoubtedly have to tweak it. But yes, it's definitely a good start.
The County Planning Commission letter, which again was Exhibit B53, it identifies an area called the Brandywine Battlefield Swath. And in their letter, they refer to this area as an area of approximate troop movements and battlefield skirmishes. Are you familiar with any of the research that the County Planning Commission, may have done that would support the designation or the mapping of the Brandywine Battlefield Swath on this property?
Yes, of course, the Brandywine Battlefield Swath, from a terminology standpoint, was something they created, in a sense, for the purposes of their review letter. The value of that area in terms of potential involvement in the battle was discussed at length in the earlier hearings of the prior plan. And obviously, I understand that's been incorporated into this record. But briefly, we are reasonably certain from extant maps, diaries, and letters from participants in the battle, some relatively recently discovered, some in German and translated, that the Hessian Jaegers and an arm of the British Light Brigade crossed over the westernmost part and west central parts, in case of the Jaegers, of Crebilly Farm, and were seen by the enemy, us, the enemy, up the hill towards Sandy Hollow, and they saw them as well. We don't know, but it's possible that even shots began to be fired from Crebilly Farm, and this was testified in the prior hearing, as those troops entered Thornbury Township.
Mila, can you put up share screen Planning Commission Exhibit 26?
I'm going to raise an objection to Mr. Snook being able to testify to PC 26, given that he's not been recognized an expert historian. and he did not prepare these troop movement maps?
He did not, but he is a land planner, and he is familiar with the County Planning Commission mapping of the Battle of the Brandywine areas. And as part of land planning and somebody who was a instrumental author in the Township's Comprehensive Plan, and the Township's Comprehensive Plan designated this tract as historically significant. I think it's very relevant, and I think he has the expertise as a land planner.
All right, but before we even get to that issue, the exhibit hasn't been identified yet, even by the witness. So can we lay a foundation first, and then, Mr. Edelman, we can revisit the objection?
Sure.
Mr. Snook, can you identify what this document is?
Yes, and I want to say that all I'm going to do, I'm not going to assess it. I'm simply going to point out what's on it.
Mr. Snook, let's just try to answer Ms. Camp's question.
Okay.
Just identify what the document is, Mr.
Okay.
Snook.
The map is a map from the Chester County Planning Commission prepared Battle of Brandywine Animated Map and Atlas Project. It was produced in December of 2010 by the Chester County GIS and Computer Systems offices and the Chester County Parks and Recreation, with cooperation from the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission.
And as a land planner, do you typically review maps such as this prepared by the County Planning Commission or the County, DCIS and GIS and Park and Recreation Department?
Yes, when relevant. And I will note that I actually was the author of the Historic Resource section of the current Westtown Township Comprehensive.
I'm going to raise my objection that Mr. Snook has no specialized expertise or skill in determining historical troop movements that may or may not have occurred in the vicinity of the Crebilly property, and therefore he is not qualified to testify with respect to what appears on Exhibit P26.
I think he's testifying more about what the County Planning Commission, how they designated based on their research and his familiarity with that research, and how that research was then integrated into the Township's Comprehensive Plan.
Then I'll object on the basis of hearsay because he's not the author of the plan, so I wouldn't be able to cross-examine with respect to the veracity of what appears on PC26.
All right. Hearing all of the arguments, we're going to overrule the objection. We're going to let the witness testify to the extent that he can as to the contents of PC 26.
John, I'm just going to be real quick on one question. How is this plan, or what does this plan show in terms of what might have occurred on this property during the Battle of the Brandywine, on the Crebilly property during the Battle of the Brandywine?
It shows in those rectangles the troops having come out of their march on Birmingham Road, essentially, to Strode's Mill, forming into ranks. And it shows a blue rectangle, which is the Hessian Jaegers, forming into rank at the northwest corner of Crebilly Farm. It also shows in a red or pink rectangle one arm of the British Light Infantry forming to the west of Crebilly Farm. And then with the lines, it shows the movement that the county believes to be the case of the Jaegers in blue and the light infantry in pink across the corner and the west central portions of Crebilly Farm. And I will note that we know that once they formed into ranks, they didn't go in single file the way the lines go. They went in a very wide swath.
Thank you. Are you familiar if the Crebilly Farm is eligible for the National Register of Historic Places?
Yes. The majority of Crebilly Farm has been determined eligible for the National Register by the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission.
You previously testified that you were one of the major authors of the Township's 2019 Comprehensive Plan, correct?
Yes.
And as part of your review of the conditional use plans that Toll filed, did you examine if the plans met various goals of the Township's Comprehensive Plan?
Yes, I did.
And did you cite relevant excerpts of the Comprehensive Plan in your letter dated October 3rd, 2019?
Yes, I did.
Mila, could you please share screen Exhibit PC22? Mr. Snook, can you identify what this plan is? Mila, can you bring it down a little because it has the title at the top?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank
well, now as everyone can see, this is the historic resources map from the 2019 comprehensive plan.
And is the Crebilly track located on the far left corner, circled in black?
Yes.
And what does the pink designation on this map mean?
The pink is the area that was determined eligible for the National Register by the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission. You'll note that it laps over New Street, and that's because that land on the west of New Street was, at the time this was proposed to PHMC, under the same ownership as what we now call Crebilly Farm. You'll notice that the church is cut out. You'll also notice those recently acquired lots are cut out, as well as the corner, which is a separate tax parcel, of 202 and 926. However, on that corner, the inn itself, the old Darlington Inn, or Westtown Inn, is also determined to be eligible for the National Register.
And given that that nearly the entire tract is deemed eligible for inclusion on the National Register, what recommendations do you make as to how the conditional use plan should be revised to account for that and to preserve the historic significance of the tract?
The amount of the tract within the designation is obviously large. So my view would be that, as suggested by the County Planning Commission, the plan should be revised to pull development out of, in particular, likely troop movements, and maintain the ability to interpret those movements upon the landscape by moving more of the development toward the east. The plan also should be revised to maintain and adaptively reuse historical building complexes, some of which they have indeed proposed, but not all of them, for sure.
Thank you. Mila, can you share screen Planning Commission Exhibit 23? Mr. Snook, can you identify this document?
Yes, this is the future land use map from the Township Comprehensive Plan.
And again, is the Crebilly tract circled in black on the lower left-hand side?
Yes, it is.
How does the future land use map, which was adopted as part of the 2019 comprehensive plan, classify the Crebilly farm?
It indicates the area along the immediate main stem of Radley Run as Greenway, and it indicates much of the rest of the west and west central portions of the tract as open space, and I will note that is consistent with the county's designation of the battlefield swath. And it shows the eastern portions of the tract as neighborhood conservation.
And what does the comp plan suggest should happen on land designated as Greenway?
The greenways are defined by the concentrated presence of constraining natural features, obviously floodplain, wetland, riparian buffers, and adjacent steep slopes. They are largely considered appropriate and recommended, frankly, for a conservation focus. They're also noted in the comp plan that because of their linear nature, they may also be the logical setting for trail interconnections.
And what does the Township's comprehensive plan designate or recommend for areas that are marked as open space areas?
The county notes, the comp plan notes amongst its discussion of open space historically significant agricultural lands, which you will notice there are other parts of the township designated in the same green. The comp plan anticipates, where feasible, obviously it means negotiating with landowners or developers, permanent conservation and sustainable management of key open space areas, and including lands designated as open space through the subdivision process.
Given a designation of the Crebilly tract, or how the future land use plan designates the Crebilly tract, what recommendations do you make as to how the conditional use plan should be revised to be more consistent with those designations and goals of the comprehensive plan?
The development plans as submitted are generally consistent with the designation of the Greenway. They basically leave that main stem Bradley Run corridor alone. Obviously, some of the other people questioning have raised other issues about water quality, etc., which also, of course, need to be addressed. It doesn't show trail interconnections there, which is also anticipated within the Greenway designation, although not necessarily everywhere. On the other hand, almost half of the development, proposed development, is in the area denoted by the Comprehensive Plan Future Land Use Map as open space. And as mentioned before, and as Chester County has recommended, I support moving more of the development in the west to the east to help preserve that open space area.
Does the designation on the future land use map of the eastern portion of the Crebilly tract allow for the development or flexible development on that portion of the tract?
Yes, the neighborhood conservation designation anticipates additional residential development for the most part, consistent with the patterns that are typical throughout Westtown Township. It also does, however, anticipate preservation and adaptive reuse of historical structures and trailers, which are only partially dealt with in the current proposed plan.
So as a planner, you're not saying that Toll can't develop 319 homes. You're saying that they should just shift it to put it on the most suitable land as identified under the future land use map. Is that an accurate explanation of your recommendations? Okay.
Yes, that is accurate.
Mila, can you please share Planning Commission Exhibit 24? Mr. Snook, can you identify this document?
This is the Trails and Bikeways Plan portion of the comprehensive plan.
And again, is the Crebilly tract circled in black on the lower left side?
Yes, it is.
And what does the comprehensive plan propose for the development of trails in and around the Crebilly tract?
The dashed yellowish or orangish line is indicating proposed trails as opposed to existing trails. And as you'll see, the comp plan proposed a link along the potential route of the connector road, which is included in the toll plan. But it also indicated a perimeter trail to make a complete loop around the northern, western, and southern edges of the tract, connecting to the route along the connector road. Now, I will say those locations are general. There's no reason why they can't wiggle or move around some. But the key point was to have a complete loop that would be publicly accessible and yet not invading the privacy of the middle of the neighborhoods.
And did the conditional use plans that were submitted in August of 2019 provide a perimeter trail similar to what is proposed on the Trails and Bikeway plan?
No, it did propose some trails in certain areas near the perimeter, but mainly connecting internally into the internal trail system of the development. It did not provide for a true perimeter trail system.
And as a result of that, what recommendations did you make to the Planning Commission for how the conditional use plans could be revised to be more consistent with the Trails and Bikeway path?
It would would be more consistent if they would add in a perimeter path or alter some of the trails they show. They do have a piece of a trail along the perimeter on the southern track, extending west from the connector road, but then it goes up into the middle of the track. And so, in other words, it's not that they don't have anything, but it could be improved upon for sure.
Are you familiar with the alternative plan that the applicant submitted in January of 2020 in response to many of the Planning Commission's comments?
Yes, I saw an earlier version than the one that I think is an exhibit, and I did submit a review letter to the Township Planning Commission, but in the meantime I have reviewed the more recent version that is on the Township website.
And does that alternate plan, which has been marked Exhibit A76, does that provide a trail network that's more consistent with the Township's 2019 comprehensive plan and the trails and bikeway path?
Only slightly. It does provide more internal looping trails that go toward the perimeter of the track, but there's no continuous perimeter trail that also could allow for public use that would not be intermixed with private use internally. That's the failure and from the trail planning standpoint. The plan also it does move the development a little bit to the east, and it moves it to eastward of the barn complex that is proposed to be reused as a recreational area, which I think is not inappropriate at all. But it still leaves a good chunk of development in the battlefield swath.
In your review of the alternate plan, again, that's marked A76, are there any other recommendations that you would make at this point to the Board of Supervisors as far as how the plan can be further revised to be more consistent with the comprehensive plan and various sections of the zoning ordinance?
Yes, I recommended in my review letters to the Planning Commission several things that could still stand to be addressed. One is an archaeological survey, potentially including ground penetrating radar in selected areas where we believe there to have been significant troop movement. In addition, areas planned for development other than sewage disposal in the westernmost and southwestern portions of the tract should be relocated to provide for concentration of significant open space in the area of the battlefield swath and in scenic views in the immediate viewshed of the historic farmstead off of Street Road, or 926. In addition, the open space should be redesigned consistent with the future land use map in the new comp plan. Again, relocation of new homes, as previously noted and as suggested in the county's suggested alternative plan, should also relieve the large distance that some of the homes will be from primary external access to the tract by moving it closer to the eastern side. The unit count mix, in order to accomplish that, will obviously have to be adjusted in terms of so-called carriage houses versus single-family houses. Also, because it wasn't clear to me on the scale at which I could view the plan on my little tiny computer, if it hasn't been incorporated, and this would be consideration on the part of the township as well as the developer, there should be consideration to reducing the minimum distance between multifamily dwellings or carriage homes to affect greater flexibility in both their location and in meeting open space objectives. The ordinance does provide for the board to be able to modify that provision of distance between units.
Mila, could you put up Planning Commission Exhibit PC 25, which is my last exhibit?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there a way you can...
Can you rotate it?
Yeah, rotate it. Mallory sent you oh, there you go. Thank you.
There you go.
Okay, thank you. John, did you prepare this?
Yes, this is the plan itself, of course, in gray underneath, is from the toll plan. The drawing on top in color is crudely drawn by me and scanned. The orange line on the very perimeter and then skirting around the Presbyterian Church is the area of the Brandywine Battlefield Preservation Planning Area as defined by the American Battlefield Protection Program. Okay. That's the boundary of what the county calls the Brandywine Battlefield. The green line, and of course it extends as a trapezoid around the western part of the tract, is the portion of the tract that is designated for open space in the 2019 comp plan. The yellow line is the eastern edge of the Brandywine Battlefield swath as defined by the Chester County Planning Commission. And obviously I show it going north and south out of the tract because obviously the battlefield swath is much more than just Crebilly Farm. The red lines are the portions of the development that I suggest replacing on the eastern side of the tract, giving up away, in a sense, the slim area between the green and the yellow lines. The brown line is an example of a suggestion for the perimeter trail, starting at the northern end of the tract, at the edge of the connector road, and going around, and then skirting in from the perimeter so as not to have to cross Radley Run, and coming back to the connector road at the southern end of the tract. And that's obviously a generalized locational suggestion. The purple, or they appear here, blue ovals, are historic building complexes, which should be, in my view, and in the county's view, kept, preserved, and adaptively reused, as has in fact been proposed to some extent.
Was this plan used by the Planning Commission when they were evaluating both the original application as well as the alternate plan and coming up with their recommendations to the board?
Yes, I did give this to the Planning Commission or present it at one of the meetings of the Planning Commission that was held at Stetson Junior High School or middle school.
Okay. And finally, were you participating in one of the prior conditional use hearings in this go-round where a resident spoke about the Serpentine Barrens?
Yes, I did. I listened to the whole meeting even though I didn't get on it. But
and how can you add anything and any recommendations with respect to the Serpentine Barrens?
Well, I would like to just suggest that, and anyone who wants can read in the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan includes a section of text in Chapter 5, which is Natural Resources, regarding the Pennsylvania National Heritage Program. And interestingly, related to the question that was raised by one resident at the hearing in December, the Pennsylvania Natural Heritage Program does denote a number of what they call core habitats and supporting areas in Westtown Township. One of these natural heritage areas is called the Brinton's Quarry Serpentine Barren Natural Heritage Area. It contains important plant species such as the state-imperiled serpentine aster, and I'm quoting information.
I'm sorry, Mr. Snook. I'm going to need that again, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Where did I lose you?
It contains important plant species such as...
Oh, yes. The state-imperiled serpentine aster. Now, and again, that's in the comp plan. I'm just quoting it. Now, the core habitat for this natural heritage area is located around the quarry, obviously, which is across New Street, but does lap across New Street into the southwestern portion of Crebilly Farm. The supporting area for this natural heritage area includes a wide swath of Crebilly Farm, essentially contiguous with the watershed of Radley Run, which is most of Crebilly Farm, which is also the supporting area for a couple other core habitat areas nearby. And that information is also in the comp plan, but since it doesn't particularly involve Crebilly Farm, I didn't think we needed to put that on the record here.
And given that information, again, in Chapter 5 of the comp plan about those resources, does that lend further support to your recommendations to shift as much development as you can out of the western portion of the track?
Yes, because the supporting area for that natural heritage area starts in the southwest corner of the track and moves up the branches of Radley Run into the interior of the track. The farther away you get, the less impact there is. So again, it really supports the open space designation in the comp plan, which is the green line on this drawing, which is still in front of you.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Thank you, Ms. Camp. It being about 10 minutes after 8, why don't we go ahead and take our break for the evening at this point, and then we can reconvene with the cross-examination, beginning with Mr. Edelman.
And Pat, can I ask
So
a
we'll
quick
go off the
question?
record.
Can I ask a question procedurally?
Okay.
Are we to move for admission of our exhibits all now after they're being introduced? I can't remember how we did that the last time.
It's not
We waited
necessary.
till the end.
We typically do wait until the end.
Okay, just making sure. Thank you.
Okay. All right, we'll go off the record for 7 or 8 minutes. Thank you.
Bathroom break. 7 or 8 minutes. Oh, it's up.